Let's check out this big surprise I found on Reverb. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. This should not exist, but it does, so it needed to be documented. I'm giving you the forewarning now. Prepare yourselves. It's one of the craziest guitars Gibson has ever been asked to make. That's right, this is not a Dean guitar. This is an official Gibson product, known as the SGV or the ZV. And you heard me right. Asked to make. This is a signature guitar for Zakk Wylde. However, there were only 2 versions of this guitar done in 2008, 100 of them in his famous Bullseye design pattern, and 50 production units for the Buzzsaw. We actually reviewed one of the artist-proof versions of the Buzzsaw. So naturally, when I saw this on Reverb, I was like, what is going on here? This one is kind of a metallic gray color. I called Gibson up and they said this one was produced in 2009 and it was officially known as Gunmetal gray. They couldn't tell me how many they made like this. And if you look at the backside of the neck, this is unlike the Zakk Wylde models. Those ones have a natural colored back of the neck. And then they have a Stinger and Zakk, but this one is just completely covered over and it has a regular style serial number, custom shop, dating to 2008. So maybe it was stamped 2008, shipped out in 2009. My best guess is this might be a runoff unit. Rather than have more than what they said they were going to make, they just did a small runoff version. So it's the SG on the top half, but then the bottom half is flying V. However, it is a little bit more pointier than a regular V, and it's got a contoured edge pretty much the entire way. It still has our EMG pickups, but it's got like a Les Paul custom style fretboard. Pretty much you could just say neck, because when you get up here, it's just your regular Gibson style open book headstock shape. They didn't go for flying V, so more so akin to an SG custom being blent with a flying V, I guess you could say. But a Carina style flying V, because it's also string through, which is a whole lot of fun. But the ZVs were the last Gibson custom shop produced Zakk Wylde Signature before they went off to do the Gibson USA, Modern of Doom, Vertigo Custom, and his BFGs. But he's had a lot of signatures with Gibson, from the Bullseye Custom to the Camo Custom, the Bullseye Flying V with Floyd Rose, the ZVs that we just talked about, but then he also has a bunch of Epiphones of the same versions, as well as some exclusives like the Pee-wees and the Buzzsaw Les Paul Custom, the Crazy Graveyard Disciple. But you could say there is an Epiphone ZV done up in black. So maybe that's why they decided to do this, but this is not a straight up ebony finish. Again, I was telling you, it's gunmetal gray officially. But now under Wylde Audio, he has a whole bunch of crazy stuff too. I've always said these are one of the most non-Gibson guitars that they've ever made. So first impressions out of the box, I mean, yeah, it's weird, feels like some sort of a Dean-like thing, but you've got Gibson things behind it. I'm noticing there was definitely some humidity issues on this. You can feel a ridge along the neck. And oh my goodness, do we have a bad case of fret nib gap on this one. What I found interesting about this one is, even though we don't have Zakk on the back, you still have the Zakk Wylde Signature case, but it's not part of Zakk's attack pack. It's just labeled in SGV. So to learn more about this particular one, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench, take a look at its parts and specs, see if there's anything else we can discover, as well as redocument one of these crazy Gibson guitars. Inside our gunmetal gray friend here, she cleaned up nicely. Now the listing on the shop's description said they were passive EMG pickups. I thought, well, maybe that's how it differs, but no, it's the active 8185 set. As we can verify here, still same pickups as the Zakk Signature. Now I was hoping we would see the remnants of the Buzzsaw or Bullseye pattern, but no dice there, because there's 2 options for this thing. It's either an extra that got a new finish on it, or maybe the custom shop was like, okay, our signature runs are done, but could we sell these on our own? However, I think if they were going to do that, maybe they would go for their more traditional pickup set. But whatever this was, only time will tell how many other colors might be out there. But it does indeed have long neck tenon construction, and here's what our bridge pickup cavity looks like for fun. As far as our bridge and tailpiece system, you've got a Nashville style bridge, PW branded, and you have a decorative tailpiece screwed onto the top for your string through construction. But now for our controls. You've got 3 knobs right here. You've got a volume, and a master tone. Then your output jack is on the front, but it has its own custom metal washer plate for it. And there is no back plate cavity for this one. So if you ever had to change it, it'd be kind of a pain in the butt, because it's hard to get in there. And you might be wondering, where's our toggle switch on this bad boy? It's down here. It's one of the more unique attributes of this model. Some guys dig it, some don't. Like, you can actually use your arm while you're playing to quickly flip into the bridge position, or you can be really aggressive and lift your arm up and it is what it is for these. But when the shop called this one Gunmetal Gray, it just looked black in their photos. But calling up Gibson and confirming that's what it was, I'm actually very happy with the way this one looks in person now that it's been cleaned up a bit. It just has a very light metallic sheen to it. It's not complete black, it's just an ultra dark gray color. Works well with this style instrument. Because let's face it, the Buzzsaw and Bullseye pattern, it's not for everyone, but maybe you could win more people over like this. I would actually like to see this on the edge, but have a natural top with the flameage. That could be fun. But these are mahogany bodies. I'm not seeing any obvious seam lines. I'm not saying that it is a one-piece body, but so far on all these ones that I've had, when there are seam lines like we'll see on the back of the neck, usually they'll show up eventually. So it's possible that they spec'd out these limited edition ZVs as one-piece bodies. Because the SG horns, I would say it's about 10 3/4 wide. But then the wingspan at its greatest is 18 inches on these. And from the neck heel all the way down to where the furthest point would be, it's about 20. But now let's move on to our neck. So it's a 3-piece maple neck, more on that a little bit later, with a standard ebony fretboard. Being 2008, 2009, you're just a few years before the rich light stuff coming into play. But now let's talk about fret nib gaps. You see this right here? The fret nib has a gap before the fret. This will occur on many 90s and 2000s Gibsons. I think it had to do with the wood supply that they were using, so it is fairly commonplace, but in my opinion should be disclosed on every guitar. It's more predominantly an issue when you have it on the high E string, because depending on your pull-off technique, if you pull the string off this way, there is a tendency for it to get caught in between if there's a small gap. That's kind of funny about this one, is it's so large. So far I haven't actually noticed an issue with it, but it's definitely caused by the fretboard expanding a little bit, because you can feel a little bit of a lipped ridge along the binding. Now you could take some fine sandpaper and smooth that out if you really wanted to. But if you look closely, you can actually see the line of that area that I'm talking about. And there's only 3 ways that you can address this. A, you can properly humidify the guitar and hope that cures it. Usually that process doesn't work, but hey, it's worth a shot. B, you can refret the entire guitar and put the fret over top of the binding edge, then you're good to go. Your third option is to have a luthier fill it in with super glue and then finally sand it, basically to fill in the gap. Or the most popular option, live with it as is. But our nut measures 1.66 inches and 210 by the 12th. First fret neck depth 0.85 and an even 1 at the 12th with a 12-inch fretboard radius and a 24 3/4 inch scale. Here's that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret, just a nice C shape. It's full, but not like giant baseball bat neck. But now we can move on to our headstock. It cleaned up nicely, similar to the lines along the neck. Another thing that's just common to know about Gibson guitars, you see the lines around the inlays. So many people see that and go, oh, that's a fake Gibson. That's shoddy workmanship. That's just how Gibson does their inlays and how you know it's real. But our truss rod is perfect on this one. Moves to the left and the right. And we've got a blank truss rod cover with some scratches. Moving on to the backside. Here's a really good shot of showing that the horns of an SG are not symmetrical. However, I really think he over-exaggerates this one. It's a little bit more offset than usual. At least that's how it looks in this photo angle. But outside of some polishing swirls, honestly the condition's not too bad back here after a cleanup job. Just a couple of dings in that area. Big sharp pointy guitars always get dings down here. No exception in this area either. But inside our first control cavity, you actually have hand soldered pots, which is not always the case on EMG pickups. Usually they're on a quick connect system. And here's a battery for our active EMG pickups. But it just fits in like so. Here you can see our string through ferrules. And then this is for our toggle switch. It actually has a smaller route than usual. It uses a special cover with only 2 screws for it. And in case you're curious, this guitar does have an edge, and it's flat. I think it would have been kind of cool had it just came to a pointy edge and then came down, but to keep your traditional Gibson stylings alive, they left it be. Outside of that contoured edge we were talking about along the entirety of the rim of the guitar. Definitely makes it look very different from Gibson's usual stylings. And that's what I love about Zakk Wylde. Only he could get Gibson to do something as crazy as this. Because A, he's got the aggressive playing style to pull one of these guitars off, and B, he had the star power to get Gibson to do something as zany as this. But once again, I do not see any seam lines. And if you get it in the light just right, you can indeed still see the mahogany wood grain sinking through. So I do believe it's a one-piece body. But you've got a strap button right here and one down here. But now our neck. I've been talking about the neck. We'll talk about it later. Now it's time. Zakk specs. He likes 3-piece maple necks because his Grail guitar happens to be a Norlin era Les Paul custom that has the maple neck. But even though we have a solid finish here, you can actually see there's been some light movement within the pieces. This is nothing to worry about, by the way. A small little line like this, yeah, that's fine. Based on everything else we've seen, I'm not worried about that at all. When you need to worry is when you can actually fit your nail in between the sections, like deeply. Then you have neck separation going on. Now, if we didn't have this line right here or running along the headstock veneer, then I might have some worries that it could be like water damage. But this one, nah, it's just how it's been stored. But actually kind of cool because you can still verify that it does have the Zakk spec of a 3-piece maple neck. And once again, with a solid colored finish and no stinger and no Zakk on the back. Usually you'd probably be like, that's kind of a bummer. But when it's a custom color, this is for somebody who has both of those other Zakk guitars in their collection and they want that next thing that they didn't know existed. As far as tuners, it's just your regular Grovers that are black. And our serial number dates this one to 2008, 429th in production. All said and done, how much does this behemoth weigh? 9 pounds, about 2 ounces. Not too bad for how giant it is. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. Alright, so those were the clean tones with the volumes down to 5 or 6, because EMGs just really pump your amp, but here they are at 10 just for comparison. Imagine showing up to your jazz gig with this. Hey man, bringing my Gibson. Strange about these is they're slightly neck heavy. Like, they're not the worst in the world. Like, once you get them anchored and kind of have them right by your leg right there, they work okay, because you'd think this giant body would be enough to weigh it down, but apparently not. I would actually say the neck profile is very full feeling once you have it on a strap, and in the way I played it, I didn't really notice any of the fret gap. It really just depends how you play. Some people are really bugged by it, others not as much. And when I first took this thing out of the case, when I grabbed the neck, I feel that ridge, and it makes me think the guitar's broken or something. But when you actually have it on a strap, at least this one's not as sharp as some of the other ones I've had in the past. But it doesn't make the guitar incredibly uncomfortable. Overall, I thought it actually played really nicely. The shop said they had plecked it, and after a cleaning job, there's nothing wrong with this. Because this is more so a collector's guitar rather than something that's going to be played out on stage at this point in time of its life. With Zakk no longer being with Gibson, I highly doubt, outside of like an April Fool's joke or a Halloween limited edition, I don't think they would ever produce these things again. But if you want something a little bit less expensive than this, check out the Wylde Audio brand. But if you're interested in being the next owner of this unique piece of Gibson history, feel free to check it out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com, or over on Reverb, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed this weird Gibson episode, you might enjoy this one as well. Go ahead and click it. Check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed.